My stepmom wanted to give my deceased mother's jewelry as a wedding gift to my stepsister, but my prank of swapping them for fakes got me a few laughs. I, Alex, 25, need to tell this because it's been too much to keep to myself. A little context. I lost my mom a few years ago, and it was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. She was like a friend, not just my mother, so losing her hit me pretty hard. She wasn't just my mother, she was my home. When she passed, the pain was unbearable. Everything in my life changed in an instant, and the only thing that gave me a little comfort was the jewelry she left behind. My mom loved her jewelry. She wasn't rich or anything, but she had a beautiful collection of pieces she'd gathered over the years. Some from my dad, some she bought herself, and some inherited from her family. She would tell me the story behind each piece. There was a delicate gold bracelet my grandma gave her for her 18th birthday, a locket with a photo of me as a baby, a beautiful sapphire ring my dad gave her for their anniversary, and a few others. There were 6 pieces in total, all very dear to her. Even when she was sick, she still wore her jewelry. Some days when the illness hit her hardest and she felt too weak to get out of bed, she'd still put on her favorite rings or earrings just to feel a little more like herself. She'd smile in the mirror, like it brought some life back to her. After she died, those jewels became my most prized possessions. Not for their monetary value, but because they were the only physical connection I had left to her. Every time I saw one of these pieces, it reminded me of her, and memories of her would flood back. And then came my dad's new wife, Marta, 57, and her daughter Morgan, 24. If I'm here talking about my stepmom and stepsister, you know I wasn't a big fan. I never saw them as competition to replace my mother, but we just weren't compatible at all. My dad married Marta barely a year after my mom died, which was weird. I have to admit I wasn't ready for him to move on, and honestly it seemed like he wasn't either, but he did it anyway. And because he's my dad, I thought he deserved another chance at life after losing his first love. Marta was proper, I guess, in that fake, polite way. She acted kind, but she always had that weird aura that makes you doubt people. Morgan was worse, though. Morgan was spoiled, stuck up, and had this way of talking down to me like she was superior, maybe because of the age difference, but she didn't excel at anything over me. But somehow, she saw me as inferior. Fast forward a year. Morgan was getting married. Big wedding, huge guest list, the whole package. And Marta decided she wanted to give my mom's jewelry to her as a wedding gift. She didn't even ask me. She thought they were hers to give away. I found out because I overheard her talking on the phone, excited, telling a friend how beautiful Morgan would look in the sapphire ring and that she planned to give it to her at the bridal shower. She was talking about my mom's ring. My ring. The ring my dad gave my mom when they were still happy, when she was still alive, the one she used to wear even when her hands were frail and thin from treatment. No, she was not giving it away. I didn't waste time confronting her. I asked her what the hell she was talking about, and she gave me that look like I was overreacting and said, "Oh dear, it's a family heirloom, it should stay in the family." I told her they were staying in the family, that they were for me, because it was my mother, and they had no relation to her at all. I made it clear that those jewels were not hers to give away, that they were my mother's, that they were now mine, and that she had no right to even touch them, much less give them to Morgan. She acted surprised, like she genuinely couldn't understand why I was upset, and then she had the nerve to tell me that Morgan was my sister now and that I should want her to have something special on her wedding day. I told her Morgan was not my sister, and my mom's jewelry wasn't some trinket she could give away as if it belonged to her. Then my dad got involved. Any normal father would be defending his daughter in this because if my mother left them to me, the only one who could give them away was me and I wasn't going to. But not my dad, who saw how much those things meant to my mother, and consequently, to me. He told me to calm down. He said, "They're just jewels, Alex. They're a family heirloom. They should go to Morgan since she's getting married first." I asked him if he really thought my mom, his wife of over 20 years, would agree with that. He had the audacity to tell me that the memory would live on in us, but not in some stupid jewels. However, Morgan could use them, and it wouldn't be a big deal. Maybe later she could give them back to me and all. Sure, like that would happen. He also told me that this was part of the past and we needed to move on. I lost it. I told him that if Marta or Morgan took even a single piece of my mom's jewelry, I would never forgive him, that I would never speak to him again. He just sighed like I was a spoiled child throwing a tantrum and told me to think about it. But I reiterated that they legally belonged to me and that there would be legal consequences. I took some time to think about what my dad said, not because I was actually considering handing over my mom's jewels, but because I realized something. My dad wasn't going to back me up, that much was clear, and Marta was determined to make my days miserable until the wedding. I saw it in her smile. She was confident she would eventually wear me down until I gave them to her. So I did something not only to avoid any future problems, but also to get a little revenge. I played along and pretended to agree. A few days after the argument, I went downstairs and told my dad and Marta that I had thought about it, and they were right. That I had been too emotional, that I needed to stop clinging to the past, and that maybe it was time to let go. Marta looked so pleased. It took everything in me not to laugh when she gave me her fake sympathetic smile and said, "Oh, honey, I knew you'd understand. It's what your mother would have wanted." I wanted to scream, but that would ruin my plan. Instead, I smiled and nodded as if I agreed. I even said I thought Morgan would love the jewels and that it was nice she would have something meaningful to wear on her wedding day. My dad seemed relieved, like he had been bracing himself for another fight. I had an old friend, Lauren, who I hadn't talked to in a while. We were never super close, but she was very kind, and luckily her brother was a jeweler. I contacted her, and after catching up a bit, I casually mentioned that I needed a special job done. Nothing too elaborate, just some very realistic fakes. She was curious, of course, but I was vague with the details. I just told her I needed some duplicates made and that I was willing to pay whatever it took. She put me in touch with her brother, and after explaining what I needed, he agreed to help me out. And the best part? My little prank didn't cost too much. It was a few dollars well spent. I met with him the following week and handed over all the pieces. The sapphire ring, the gold bracelet, the locket, a pair of diamond earrings, a pearl necklace, and a small brooch with sentimental value. I wasn't sure which one Marta had chosen, so I had to cover all my bases. The brother was really good at his job. When he handed me the finished fakes, I could barely tell the difference. The weight was a little off, and if you looked really closely, you could see some imperfections, but to any average person, they were identical. He even made sure to wear them down a little so they'd look aged. Then, with the originals, I made sure to leave them in a safe place outside the house while I placed the fakes where the originals would have been. I made sure everything was exactly as it was before. The same boxes, the same arrangement, nothing that would raise suspicion. And then I waited. That night, Marta called me downstairs. I had to force myself to act normal when she offered me a glass of wine and said, "I just wanted to thank you again for being so mature about this, Alex. I know it was hard for you, but you're doing the right thing." Inside, I was just thinking, I'm doing more than the right thing. For the next year, everything was normal. Life went on, and honestly, I thought I had gotten away with it. Morgan wore the necklace a couple of times, and Marta would make comments here and there about how beautiful she looked in my mom's jewelry. I had to bite my tongue every time not to make a comment or laugh. It was hilarious seeing how she thought she had real pieces when they were just cheap fakes. The real ones were safe in a bank deposit box, except for a few small sentimental pieces I kept with me that were tiny enough to hide. I wasn't going to take any risks. I had beaten Marta, and I thought that was the end of it. But 2 weeks ago, I got a call. It was my dad. He sounded annoyed, like the day had been an incredible hassle for him. Apparently, Marta and Morgan decided to take the jewelry to get appraised, and the appraiser told them they were fakes. I almost dropped the phone. I had spent a whole year thinking they would never think of taking them to an appraiser. Of course, they could have done it for insurance purposes to know their value better, but it was a bit petty of them to try and sell them and get some money from them. And honestly, the whole situation made me even angrier than before. It just confirmed that I had been right all along. Neither of them cared about the family aspect of it. All they wanted was to see how much they could get for them. They weren't even consulting me if I agreed to them selling them, since they were family heirlooms, as they called it. I had to think fast, so I played dumb. I acted surprised. I even blurted out a, fake, just to make it more realistic. He told me the appraiser said they weren't authentic, that they looked good but were fakes. Morgan and Marta were losing their minds. Do they think I did something? I almost burst out laughing right then and there, but I forced myself to stay calm. How weird, I said. I don't know anything about that. But why were they getting them appraised? I thought they were family pieces. That shut him up for a moment. He hesitated to answer, and I could hear the doubt in his voice. Well, they just wanted to know the value, just to know. Yeah, I'm sure they did. I kept the act going, all confused and worried. I even had the nerve to say, "Wow, that's crazy." Maybe the jeweler was wrong, or maybe they were always fake and Mom never knew. I think that last part threw him off because he started defending my mom, saying she would never have worn fake jewelry, which, yes, is true, but I had to make him doubt everything to get the suspicion off me. Finally, he said he would call me back later and hung up, and that's when the laughter really hit me. I couldn't believe that not only did I get them to believe they had the real ones, they were trying to sell them and showing how gold-digging they are. Although, I still had doubts if my father was also part of the plan or just being tricked. I don't regret what I did for a second. If I had to do it again, I would, but maybe adding some hidden message to the jewels, something that didn't point to me, but mocked them. I don't know exactly what my mother would have thought of all this, but knowing that I protected her jewelry and taught a lesson to two greedy people like my stepmom and stepsister would have seemed comical to her. I hope it does to you, too. Update 1. It's been a wild few weeks, and I thought I should update you because with so many things developing, I was going to have to write a book if I let more time pass. After my last post, I was living in anticipation of the call that they had found out what happened. I was already prepared for whatever came next, because at this point I didn't care too much, but things have gotten a little chaotic since I was last on this sub. So here we go. About a week after that call, my dad showed up at my apartment unannounced. This man had never done that before. He always calls when he plans to visit. I opened the door, and he was standing there looking grim. He didn't even say hello and walked in like we were at war. He turned around and blurted out, "Marta wants to take legal action against you." I kept my face neutral and said, "Legal action? For what?" He crossed his arms and said, "For the stolen jewelry." I just stared at him for a second, trying to figure out if he was serious. He was. I told him that first, you can't steal something that already belongs to you, that Mom left me those jewels legally in her will, and second, I didn't steal anything. That sent him off. He launched into a whole speech about how I was selfish, how I was stealing from his family, how my mom would have wanted me to share. He hit me with a, "Why would an appraiser say they're fake if you didn't swap them?" And that's where I almost slipped up. I was getting angry and wanted to lash out, but I took a deep breath and said, "I don't know, Dad, maybe they were always fake." And that made him hesitate for a second, but then he shook his head and said, "That's impossible. Your mother's jewelry was real." And I replied, "Then why were they getting it appraised? Maybe Mom didn't trust you and that's why she swapped them." Like I was giving him a reason. I saw it on his face. He knew what I was implying. That Marta and Morgan were planning to sell my mom's jewelry, and now that they couldn't, they were furious. And in that moment, he didn't say anything else and left. I thought maybe that would be the end of it. It wasn't. A couple of days later, my mom's sister, my Aunt Sydney, 53, called me. She was furious. Apparently, Marta had been talking to the whole family, telling everyone that I stole Morgan's wedding jewelry and replaced it with fakes. She was playing the victim and telling everyone that I had betrayed the family. But Sydney didn't buy it. She told me there was no way my mom would have wanted Morgan to have that jewelry. In fact, my mom had specifically told Sydney that she wanted me to have her jewelry. She knew my dad might remarry someday, and she was worried a new wife would try to claim them. My mom knew. For now, I'm safe. But the accusations are still flying around. I don't care, though, because they can accuse me of whatever they want. But legally, they are still mine, and they can't sue. Maybe they'll even get sued by a judge for making him laugh so hard his glasses fall off. I don't know. What I do know is that I thought the laughs would only be at the wedding when I saw her wearing her fake jewels. But my little prank is still paying off a year later. It's very hard not to jump in and say, "Dad, it's a joke." But if I do, I'd miss out on this free entertainment they're providing. Update 2. The replica prank is still the talk of the town, and it doesn't look like the updates are going to stop. Things had been calming down, and I thought all good things must come to an end, but life threw another surprise my way, and this was a good one. Marta just gave herself away in the most spectacular fashion possible. After my last update, Marta and Morgan had a huge fight. Morgan felt betrayed that she hadn't received the real jewelry and had gotten married wearing fakes, and so she was furious about how it made her look in front of everyone. She thinks the people at her wedding were skilled jewelry appraisers who, with perfect vision, realized they weren't real and were gossiping about her. They barely spoke for weeks. I thought that would be the end of it, but a few days ago I got a super long message from Morgan, and when I say long, I mean the Bible is light reading. The summary so as not to crash the Reddit servers, was that I was a horrible sister and how I had ruined her wedding, and it was tainted. She said I lied about the jewels being fake and that she deserved the real pieces because she was now part of the family. And then she said the most absurd thing she could have said. I don't care if you switch them, I just want the originals back. There's no point in keeping up the facade anymore. Everyone already suspects me. I was hoping to stay in the shadows a bit longer. At that point, I was fed up with another message from Methuselah, so I just replied, Morgan, I have no idea what you're talking about. The jewels you received are what you deserve. No more, no less. She told me they now had proof and that they would make sure I paid for what I had done. The next day, my dad called me, and he sounded like he'd been kept up all night with both of them screaming in each ear. He said, Marta wants to press charges. I started laughing. I asked him on what grounds for keeping my own inheritance. Apparently, Marta was serious. She went to see a lawyer to see if she could sue me for theft, but the lawyer basically told her that since the jewels were legally mine, anything she gave me was fine. She had no case. I've never had to go to a lawyer, so I don't know if she had to pay for that consultation. But if she did, she could have saved the money by consulting a 5-year-old who would tell her the exact same thing. That enraged her so much that she ended up incriminating herself without realizing it, because during one of her tantrums, she confessed to my dad that she had always planned to give my mom's jewelry to Morgan, regardless of what I said. She admitted that she never thought to ask for my permission because she thought I was selfish and that Morgan deserved to receive them as a wedding gift. I don't know exactly what clicked in my dad's head, but something changed. Maybe it was the fact that Marta openly admitted she didn't care about my mom's wishes. Maybe it was realizing she had been lying to him all this time. Or maybe it was simply that he finally saw how ridiculous and cruel the whole thing had been. Whatever it was, that same night, I received another call from him. This time he wasn't angry at me, he was angry at Marta. He apologized to me. He admitted he had been an idiot for not seeing Marta's manipulation sooner. He said my mom's jewels should never have been a topic of discussion, and then he said something I never thought I'd hear from him. I think I made a mistake marrying her. I don't care what happens to their marriage, that's not my problem, but the mere fact that he said that is huge. The next day, he and Marta argued again. He told her she had completely crossed the line, that she had no right to touch my mom's things. And Marta exploded. She vented, saying I was turning him against her, that she was just trying to be a good mother by giving Morgan something meaningful, and that she deserved the jewelry more than me because she was the new wife. The argument escalated so much that Marta ended up packing her bags and going to stay with Morgan for a few days. And my dad looked strangely relieved. I don't know what will happen now with their marriage, and I know now some people will see me as the culprit because my prank destroyed a marriage. But if you're one of those people who think that, I can recommend a lawyer so you can pay for a stupid consultation too. Update 3. This has officially imploded. And when I say imploded, I mean scorched earth, total nuclear destruction level. After my last update, everything was strangely quiet. Marta was still staying at Morgan's place, and my dad wasn't talking much about her. I was just doing my own thing, keeping my distance. Honestly, I thought maybe she was getting ready to come back and pretend nothing had happened. Instead, Marta decided that if she was going down, she was taking everyone with her. About a week ago, my dad called me. The first thing he said was, "You're not going to believe what Marta just did." Apparently, Marta decided to go completely insane and started airing all the secrets she could, secrets that were missing a bit of truth. She contacted every relative on my dad's side and started inventing this absurd narrative about how she was emotionally abused during the marriage, how dad never treated her as an equal, and how I was a manipulative liar who stole from the family. She went all out. She started digging, looking for any past mistake, old arguments, anything she could use to turn the family against us. Marta was so focused on destroying me and my dad that she forgot about a very important detail. She also had secrets, and my dad finally decided to start investigating. So after her meltdown, my dad did something he should have done years ago. He checked their finances. And he discovered that Marta had been siphoning money from their joint account for years. We're talking thousands of dollars that disappeared into expenses my dad never approved. Part of that money went towards Morgan's wedding, part went into I don't know what, and part just disappeared without a trace. And my father, who thought he hadn't contributed to his stepdaughter's wedding and that it had been paid for by her mother and father, I even remember at the wedding he told Morgan's father that everything looked very beautiful and thanked him for everything when it was he who was paying. Well, it was Marta with the money she had been stealing from him for years, but the point is the same. From the first minute, she didn't deny anything that happened. She just shrugged and said something like, "Well, I deserved it after everything I put up with." She married a man who paid for everything, who let her daughter live rent-free, and who gave her total access to his money, and she still felt entitled to take more. I'm not going to say my father didn't deserve it for being so naive, but Marta really outdoes herself. The next day, my dad went directly to see a lawyer. He's officially filing for divorce. I don't think I've ever seen my dad so determined before. It's like he finally realized how badly he was being used. Marta lost her mind. She showed up at the house while my dad wasn't there, started pounding on the door and yelling that they were treating her like garbage. I wasn't there. If I had been, I would have told her she was garbage, but my dad's security camera recorded her yelling that she was going to ruin him in court. She left before the police were called, but something tells me this isn't over yet. Morgan, true to her role as loyal daughter, tried to convince my dad to work things out with Marta. She told him that if he really loved her, he wouldn't let me come between them. My dad replied, "This has nothing to do with Alex. This has everything to do with your mother being a liar and a thief." Morgan told him he wouldn't be allowed to talk about her mother like that, and that if he divorced her, she would cut him out of her life forever. And my dad simply said, "Okay." Even I didn't expect that response. I expected him to stammer or hesitate about losing her. Morgan burst into tears because she also expected her tantrum to make him hesitate. My dad didn't say much else. He just hung up the phone while Morgan was crying. I don't think I'll update. Again. Because honestly, I'm done with them. But I wanted to share this last part because I never imagined things would explode like this. Update 4. I know I said I wouldn't update again, but trust me, you'll want to hear this. And it's not just an update with more information, it's an update that comes with justice. After my last update, Marta finally seemed to accept that the divorce was serious. But instead of keeping a low profile and thinking about her next move, like any sensible person would, she decided to make things even worse for everyone, but especially for herself. She dedicated herself to telling everyone that my dad was abandoning her and that I had manipulated him into leaving her. She even had the nerve to say that my dad had been emotionally abusive to her and that she was the real victim in all of this. Seriously, she tried to fight the divorce and demand spousal support, even though she had been stealing money from my dad for years. Her logic was that she had given up a lot to be with him and that she deserved to be compensated. Well, she was compensated, but not like she wanted. Luckily, my dad's lawyer doesn't waste time with clients and their stupid questions. Since he had clear proof that Marta had been siphoning money, her attempt to get support completely backfired. Not only did the court deny her request, but now she's facing a potential lawsuit to pay my dad back all the money she stole. She is about to lose absolutely everything. After losing the support case and being completely cut off by my dad, Marta tried one last desperate move. She showed up at my dad's house saying she needed to pick up some of her things. But my dad isn't stupid. He knew she hadn't left anything of value. He told her to send him a list, and he would arrange to mail everything to her. Marta started pounding on the door, yelling that he at least owed her a face-to-face conversation. When that didn't work, she started fake crying, saying she just wanted to talk. But my dad simply told her to go home. She finally left in a rage, not without yelling that he would regret this. So far, after those threats, the only one regretting anything is her. But hey, talk is cheap, and it gets better. Morgan had made a whole drama about cutting ties with my dad forever if he divorced Marta. That lasted about a month. Then she realized something very important. She needed money. Morgan had always relied on my dad's generosity. He helped her with rent. He unknowingly paid for part of her wedding. He even gave her extra money when she was struggling. But now that money train has stopped forever, and Marta wasn't willing or able to help her financially. Morgan came crawling back to my dad. She had the nerve to call him crying, saying she didn't mean it when she cut him out of her life. She told him that even though things with her mother weren't working out anymore, she would like to have her father in her life. And my dad told her, word for word, "Morgan, I hope you figure things out, but I'm not your ATM." And he hung up. She tried calling him several more times, but he blocked her. Update 5. Before I get to the good stuff, many people have asked me about my current relationship with my father, since he clearly hasn't been a good father to me, and that reflects in how we interact today. We haven't cut off all contact, but we aren't close like we once were either. We are cordial and nothing more. I know he's regretful, but he shouldn't be regretful about anything. He should have defended me much earlier instead of taking the issue of the jewels lightly. Without my prank, he would probably still be defending them today. The good news is that my father won the lawsuit and managed to recover a large part of the money he had lost with Marta. He recovered what he lost, yes, but not all the money he wasted on her and her daughter, who were truly leeches. If you look at this story from my father's, Marta's, or Morgan's perspective, it might seem like a sad story. But if you look at it from mine, I don't think I've ever laughed so much at a prank. And I don't usually play pranks, but this one, they deserved it.